I was about to get married to my fiance, but one morning when I woke up, walked downstairs to make breakfast for everyone like I usually do, I saw a note that was laying right there on the table, so I went over and picked it up and I read it. It said, "From your fiance, you bore me." Well, after that, you won't believe what I found out. There's no formula for pleasing human beings, and I've decided to live my life regardless of what anyone says. I'm the first child and daughter of my parents, and I'm making a name for myself in the tech industry. But I cannot say the same for my younger sister, Athena, who's constantly kept my family on our toes for as long as we can remember, but I would get to her issues later on. I lived my life quietly, and most people have referred to me as being antisocial, but I think they're just exaggerating the whole thing. Well, I attempted to follow people's opinions about loosening up a bit, and that's when I met Wilson. Wilson was a social media influencer. You see, he had little success to show for it. He was very supportive of me from the get-go and was not bothered about the fact that I earned more money than him. I've always heard people say that you should marry someone who has a personality directly opposite of yours, so that he or she could compliment you, and that was one of the reasons I felt Wilson was the perfect partner for me. I'm reserved and more of an introvert, while he's highly extroverted. Our relationship was getting serious. I decided I wanted to meet him with my family. A date was fixed, and I told my whole family. My whole family was waiting in anticipation on the day, but Wilson failed to show up at the agreed time. I get upset as I could not tell what the issue was, especially when I called his phone several times, but he wasn't answering. I tried explaining to my family that it's very unlike him to not be punctual for an appointment, but my family was already coming to the conclusion that whomever it was I was dating was not serious. Not serious as any person would strive, no matter what, to make the first impression nice. I was already tired of making up excuses for his delay, so I just kept quiet and let them talk. One of Wilson's friends suddenly showed up at the house, and I wondered how he got my address. Well, my family thought he was the one till I told him that I complained about Wilson going incognito. His friend just immediately noted that Wilson was in serious trouble, and that was why he had not showed up as agreed. Everybody got startled at the mention of trouble, and according to the friend, he noted that the police had showed up at Wilson's apartment just as he was about to come to our home, and arrested him on the grounds of theft. We were told that he was detained at the police station. I immediately reached for my car keys and was about to leave the house when my parents asked where the heck was I going. I told them I was going down to the station to help my boyfriend out, and they said that I was crazy. They noted that he was not my husband, and worse still, was not even engaged to me. I had no obligation whatsoever to him. They noted that going ahead to associate with someone arrested for theft was definitely stupid. I told my parents that Wilson was only accused of theft, and what kind of partner would I be if I abandoned him at a time like this? It was their definition of stupid, then you know what, I was okay with being labeled it. I left the house with Wilson's friend, and we were on our way to the station, when he noted that we briefly stopped by at Wilson's place to pick up something. His friend asked questions that were supposed to vet my love for him or something. So we get to his place, and to my surprise, Wilson was there with, his friends, and it did not look like he's been paid a visit by the police. I looked around for an explanation, but rather than offering one, Wilson got on one knee and popped the question, and he said it. "Will you marry me?" I was dumbfounded and did not know what to say. Wilson admitted the whole thing was a skit, designed to see if I was the kind of lady who was willing to stick with him despite the odds, and I've proven to be just that. I said yes, and the whole place simply erupted in joy. He was live streaming the event, and it was a booster of his fan base. Though I had said yes to Wilson, I lightly reprimanded him for going too extreme to make his proposal. He could have just asked me to marry him. He wanted to come back home with me to meet with family, but I suggested we reschedule so I could explain to my family, who were already so angry at him, what happened. I got to the house and everyone looked at me like I was the personified version of stupid. I gathered my family, apologized for all that's happened, and before they could even vent their anger, I displayed the ring on my finger. I explained to them that the whole thing was staged, and it was how Wilson wanted to propose. My family, especially my sister Athena, found my fiance's proposal to be oh so romantic, and they noted on the eagerness to meet with him. Wilson finally saw my family 3 days later, and he was warmly received. My parents asked him several questions, and they did not relent even when I signaled them to lighten up a bit. They opened and told Wilson that they were vetting his love for me just as he had done to me. Wilson cracked a little smile and said he understands. We began talking about the proposal, and I confessed that my heart almost failed me at some point. Immediately I was done with my statement, Athena noted that Wilson was the right person for me, as he would add color to my life through his extroverted ways. Wilson appreciated her comment and just chipped in that he intended to do just that. My sister and fiancé seemed to connect effortlessly at the table, and I guess that's because their personalities were alike. Athena could walk into a place for the first time, and she would be known by everyone in less than 10 minutes. My father finally asked Wilson when we intended to get married, and Wilson noted that we had fixed our wedding date to hold in 2 months. Athena asked what plans we have made so far, and Wilson replied that we had just started our search for a wedding planner. My sister immediately said it was perfect, and we all looked at her to understand where she was coming from. Athena told Wilson and me we did not need to look any further for a wedding planner as we're staring at one. Well, Wilson was as surprised as me. He turned to me and asked why I never told him that Athena was a wedding or event planner. I replied that it never crossed my mind because she was not one. In the earlier part of the story, I had refrained from talking about Athena, but I guess now it's that time. Athena had never had a steady job. She studied mass communication, but she's taken up so many unrelated jobs. She's even worked as a gym instructor. What does that have to do with mass communication? It was during her stint as a gym instructor that she decides to drop the name that my parents gave to her at birth to name herself after the famed goddess of war, Athena. This was how unstable and unserious she truly was. Our parents were shocked to hear her talk about being a wedding planner because she had recently talked about starting her own affiliate marketing firm. My sister, who knew that her response needed further clarification, immediately said that she had always been passionate about planning a wedding and had recently undergone an online class about it. She claimed that the reason she had not mentioned her new status as a wedding planner was because she sought the perfect opportunity and it had just presented itself. Athena boldly stated that she was going to plan our wedding for us, and the best part of it all was that she would do it for free. I would rather have an unplanned wedding because there was no way that I was going to let Athena plan my wedding. So I just politely declined my sister's proposal by thanking her for it, but noting that we would keep looking for an event planner. My sister said something throughout my fiancé's stay at the house. She confronted me with the question, "How could you do this to me?" The moment Wilson left the house, and I suspected her vexation had something to do with me declining her offer to plan the wedding, but I played dumb. I asked her to further explain what she meant, and she said that I've belittled her as a never-do-well in the presence of my fiancé. Well, when has she ever done well? I told my sister that I did not mean to disrespect her, if at all she saw it as that, but I could not entrust the planning of my wedding to somebody without experience, even if the person was my sister. Athena asked how she was going to get the said experience if every prospect client declined to give her work because she had none. She made sense to a certain level by judging from her history. It would be such a foolish thing for me to do. I apologized to my sister, but still stood firm on my ground of going to get someone else, and she began throwing a tantrum here and there. My parents weighed in on the matter, and they asked her to respect my decision. Athena did not take it lightly and accused all of us of writing her off, and she kept malice with the entire house for days. But her guilt-tripping tactics did not work on me. Not with my knowledge of her track record of failure and laxity. My parents soon approached me to try to change my mind. They noted that my sister had threatened to not be present at the wedding, and the whole thing could just grow into a family feud that could last for actual years. I don't care, I stood my ground. If my sister wanted to hold a grudge against me for the rest of her life, then you know what, that's her business. Wilson finally spoke to me about it, and I suspect that my parents, or even my sister, has asked him to. He said that my relationship with my family was more important than how my wedding was planned. I knew Wilson was talking from the place of the would-be in-law who wanted everybody to be at peace with him, so I finally agreed to let my sister plan our wedding on the very strict condition that I would discreetly hire someone else as a backup measure, just in case my sister does what she does best, which is disappointment. The second condition was that Wilson would closely monitor my sister because I was way too busy. The preparations kicked off, and Wilson monitoring my sister meant that he had spent time with her. He uploaded every moment of the wedding prep on his social media handles and boasted to his fans that he was going to give me the kind of wedding I never anticipated. I would sometimes take a sneak peek at his post, and I was excited and expectant. Wilson, however, approached me 3 weeks before our wedding and noted we had to shift the wedding further by 2 weeks. This was the advice our wedding planner had given him, as there were still some things that needed to be put in place. I began getting cold feet about the whole thing, but 2 weeks was not far, so you know what? I accepted. My wedding day finally came, and though I did not expect anything out of the ordinary, I kept my mind open because Wilson could decide to throw some sort of stunt. I was at the hotel where I had my bachelorette party, and I was almost tempted to call my fiancé, but I was restrained from doing so by my friends, since it's seen as bad luck for the groom to see or talk to the bride a day before the wedding day. They reminded me that my sister had assured me that everything was in place. I was driven to the event center, where both of the wedding ceremonies and reception would be taking place, and some guests were already there. The place did not look like it was going to be used for an occasion as important and colorful as my wedding, because literally there was 0 decorations. This was proof that my sister was incapable of handling things. My parents asked why the hall was not decorated, and there was no sign of anything except the guest, and I told them to ask their daughter, whom they vouched so high for. I called her phone to give her a piece of my mind for letting her laziness almost ruin my day, but Athena was not answering the phone. It was a good thing I've gotten a backup event planner who was on site, and I quickly pleaded with everybody present, especially the officiating minister, who was already losing his patience, to further exercise just a bit more patience. I had everybody evacuate the hall while my backup planner quickly did some decoration in under 30 minutes. It was not much, but it was better than nothing, and as regards to the cake and some other things, she began placing orders for them, and it meant the customized cake, which I've given my sister money to arrange. Well, that's not going to be used any longer if my sister did not show up with it. It was when the decoration was done that I realized that the groom of the day had not shown up still. I started calling Wilson, but he was not picking up. Uneasiness began spreading across the hall, from the bride to my parents to the minister to down to the guests. I was already in a panic mode when a young man showed up at the venue and demanded to see me. I met him, and he just handed me a piece of paper without telling me where it came from. I was already impatient with the way things were going, and I could not waste precious time pressing the young fellow for information, so I immediately opened the note as he turned to leave. Upon opening the letter, I discovered that the note had been sent by Wilson, and the words left me feeling distraught. I won't reprint the words that he said in my story, but I would say the few ones that hit me hard. Wilson said he could not marry me because I was too serious and bored him to death. He noted that my sister was better suited for him, and they've gone to live in their paradise. I read the note, and several thoughts crossed my mind while I stood there, still at spot. Was he trying to play another prank on our wedding day? Was there a hidden camera somewhere where he and my sister were just close by monitoring? Well, I thought about the whole thing being a skit, and it seriously just did not sit well with me. If this was a skit, then it was extreme, but the more I thought about it, the more scared I got that it might just be real. It then hit me that the guests who were around were those whom my parents and family had invited. Nobody from Wilson's side was present, and my parents walked up to me and asked what the issue was. I could not say anything. I just stared blankly at paper in my hand, and they took it from me, read it, and asked if it was some sort of twisted joke. I dashed out of the wedding venue with my dress and ran to my car. The tension in the atmosphere turned into a serious confusion and commotion as the guests present saw the bride running when no one was chasing her. I drove straight to Wilson's house, but guess what? The door was locked. His neighbors informed me that they've relocated some days ago. But they did not know where he currently resided, and I did not say anything. I just turned back and drove straight to my parents, while still driving behind me. I get to the house. I go straight to my sister's room, and all her things were gone. This was not a skit. My fiancé had eloped with my sister on my wedding day, and the postponement of a marriage that was never going to happen was to give him enough time to properly make the plans. I almost dropped dead. My parents tried, but failed to console me as I cried like a lady who had just turned into a widow. My sister has not just collected money from me to plan my wedding, she had equally collected my man, and we don't know where they are. I've checked up on Wilson's social media handles, and they're currently deactivated. I just wish that the worst life has to offer goes to them. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is a betrayal like none the other. But don't worry, we're going to find where Wilson went. We have multiple updates, and if you guys are enjoying these sort of stories, the best way to support the channel and make sure you never miss a video is to hit that subscribe button. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. Wilson did not just make me act like a mad woman on my wedding day. He recently did so on my birthday. I tried putting my life back together after I'd become known as the groomless bride who ran out of her wedding. Ugh. I was so broken by the incident that I had to take some time off work. My boss had thoughtfully insisted I went on a temporary paid leave so I could get myself together. My parents stood by me every step of the way, and though I knew that they were bothered about what had become of my young sister Athena, they never made mention of her whenever I was around. The drama continued, and it occurred in my life, and, well, it finally left me, with nothing more than a sour taste about me, and I had to see a therapist about it for 3 months. Thanks to her, I began healing and looking forward to moving on. A strange event began occurring around me, and I started receiving roses at work, roses at home. They were from an anonymous source, but whatever it was, probably somebody that knew me too well to know how much I loved roses. I suspected Gordon, one of the hot colleagues who was recently employed at the office, because he's been trying to get my attention. My parents were happy at the prospect of my moving on, and it encouraged me to take the initiative and talk to him. That's what I decided to do. I recently turned 28, and my parents threw me a birthday party. They invited my colleagues from the office, and the party was going swell. And I took the opportunity to speak privately with Gordon. I tried getting him to get comfortable with me by telling him I've appreciated the flowers which he's been anonymously sending me. But his face immediately wore a confused look. He told me he has no idea what I was talking about. And I realized it was somebody else. I felt kind of stupid and apologized for making the mistake. We both rejoined the party, and I was wondering who this mystery admirer was. Well, my questions was answered in just a matter of minutes. Later on, when the party was disrupted by my mother yelling at someone, our attention was directed to the altercation, and it turned out that the person she was yelling at was my ex, Wilson. The disgusting part was that he had a bunch of rose flowers in his hands. What on earth could have given them the guts to show up at our home after all that he's done? He began screaming my name as my mother demands that he leaves. The guy expected me to come to his rescue. Well, I went to him, but let me tell ya, it was no rescue. I emptied the glass of wine in my hands on his face before going ahead to give him 2 dirty slaps. I did not premeditate my actions. I just let my anger lead me on a way that I was, beginning to look like a madwoman on my birthday, but I didn't care. My parents insisted that he left our home, but before he did, I went to where I had stored the whole flowers sent to me, got them, and threw them at his face. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and began to cry. I did not rejoin them for the rest of the party. This happened yesterday, and I've been ignoring the call from my colleagues who want to check up on me, but I know I'll have to face them at work on Monday. Update number 2. Hey, it's been 6 months since I've been jilted by Wilson on our wedding day, and would you believe he's suggesting that we get married in court just days after resurfacing in my life? I got to the office after the weekend was over and had to apologize to everybody for creating a scene on my birthday. Thanks to Wilson, creating scenes on important days in my life is now becoming a usual occurrence. My colleagues understood my reaction, and some even noted that they would have killed Wilson right then and there on the spot. Well, I would not say that the thought has never crossed my mind. Wilson did not stay away like we had asked. He continued showing up at the house and even at the office, where the security wasted no time in kicking his butt out of there. I decided that I was going to get a restraining order against him, but before I did, my parents suggested I give Wilson an audience, that we could at least learn of my sister's whereabouts, and I was offended by their suggestion. My sister's whereabouts or welfare was no concern of mine. She could be dead, or I could care less. All the same, I let my parents do whatever they liked, since they noted it was best to listen to Wilson and to hear his explanation for what happened. Wilson was invited to the house on a weekend when I would be at home, because my parents knew that I would never give up the day at work just to listen to him talk trash. He was in the parlor with my parents when I notified him of the presence. He went on his knees the moment I walked in and started begging for forgiveness. He admitted that he had not behaved properly and, wrongly by jilting me on what was supposed to be our wedding day, but claimed my sister had seduced him. Was that even supposed to be an excuse? The more I sat there listening to Wilson, the more offended I became. My sister may have seduced him, but what the heck did he fall for it for? Even if he wanted to call off our engagement, could he not have done it without making me put on a wedding gown, rent and decorate a hall, and invite some guests? I was still fighting to hold my emotions in check when he said that, she realized his error and was willing to make up for the embarrassment he caused me by getting married to me in court, as he still loves me. Just imagine that fool. He feels that he could just waltz into my life and have me whenever he decides. I was about to react to his audacious, irritating suggestion when my parents asked him about my sister, Athena. Wilson simply said that he can't tell us about her whereabouts, as he claimed she moved on with some other dude after he ended things with her. After it was clear that he could not give my parents any useful information about Athena, I walked him out and asked him to never get in touch with me again, or else I will be getting restraining orders. Update number 3. My parents received a call 2 days ago from the police station in another city. The caller was my younger sister, Athena, and it seemed that she's been detained and had made several attempts to reach my parents. My parents told me about it and said it was good news for me. They went down to the police station to bail my sister out, and from what they were told, my sister's been involved in drunk driving, where she rammed into a couple's parked SUV. Her lack of driver's license was proof that she simply could not drive, and my parents got her out and got her home when I was patiently waiting. I greeted her with a fight, without waiting for her to cross the threshold of the door. I was the older and angrier one, so the beating was a flawless victory. Our parents tried separating us, but I would charge at my sister all over again, and it took a while before our parents could rescue her from my grasp. They had the family gather later that evening after I've gotten a little control on my emotions. Athena was present with a disposition that clearly showed that she was not remorseful about what transpired, and our parents asked for an explanation as to what happened between her and Wilson. Her only reply was, "It is what it is." Yeah, After breaking my trust, taking money to plan my wedding, and stabbing me in the back by running away with my fiancé on my wedding day, it is what it is? Our parents slammed her for her actions and demanded she not only offer an apology, but equally spend the rest of her life trying to make things right between the both of us. I was not, and I'm still not, interested in any form of reconciliation with my sister. I simply told her to return within 2 days. The money for the wedding, which I've, given for the planning of it. Or I noted she could keep Wilson, whom she had seduced, but was not pleading to get married to me as I was not interested. Athena replied by saying that she had done me a world of good by not letting me marry Wilson, because he's have abandoned me once and the situation were no longer favorable to him. Athena noted that he had abandoned her in prison, and if he was back, it's because he was neck-deep in debt over the loan he had to take to buy the car that she crashed. I didn't say anything else, I just stood up and walked out. I'd initially planned on keeping Wilson and my sister at arm's length, but now I would keep them behind bars, as you would agree with me. That's where they belong. Update number 4, final update of the story. After my sister's return yesterday, I mentioned that I walked out of the house. I slept at a hotel and I went to the police station the next morning. I reported my sister and Wilson to the cops and I planned on charging them for defrauding me. The cops went with me to the house and my sister woke up to find them waiting on her. I'd given her 2 days to return my money, but her attitude made me change my mind. My parents tried intervening as Athena was taken away. They wanted to repay the money, but I insisted no, that my sister would go back to the police station where she had just come back from, as she would likely head to prison once the case goes to court. I reached out to Wilson and invited him over to the house. I'd asked my parents to let me do my thing, otherwise they would be seen in the eyes of the law as obstructing justice. The reason I invited Wilson over, you're wondering? Well, I did not know where he lived. He came just a few minutes after my call as he believed I was ready to patch things up and probably get married to him so that he could use me to clear his debt. He had no idea that my sister, whom he had eloped with and left, was still in jail. She'd been bailed out, but was not taken back there. I asked Wilson if he meant it when he said that he loved me and was willing to start fresh with me, as he reaffirmed his decision to be committed to us till his death. I then asked if he had cleared the loan debt that he incurred to buy the car that Athena had crashed, and he was absolutely shocked. I then brought out the note that he had left me on our wedding day, and I began to read it. Right there, he was listening. When I was done, I told him that I bored him before, and I was not willing to entertain him now. Wilson became desperate and demanded that I help him out with his debt, but I told him he's stupid. So stupid to think that I would give him a dime, a dollar, a quarter, a nickel, a penny. He immediately got angered by my reply and raised a flower vase at me while calling me absurdities. The cops, who were already stationed in the house, swooped in and pinned him down. He tried explaining this, but the cops had seen him threaten me, so they immediately put him in cuffs and began taking him out. I stopped him along the way, looked him in the eyes, and told him that he was going to meet my sister in jail, where he could ask her to be entertaining. See ya, Wilson. So surprisingly, the comment section caught a lot of slack for OP, saying, how could you get your sister and your fiancé arrested? We understand they stabbed you in the back, they defrauded you, but this is family we're talking about. But there was also a whole nother list of commenters that were totally against that. They were saying, are you out of your mind? What they did was the deepest betrayal, and they deserve every single thing they get, which could be prison time. But I do want to know everyone's thoughts about that, so if you want to discuss it, or maybe you've been through something similar in your life, let's talk about it downstairs in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. So if you want to be a part of these daily stories, just hit that subscribe button for daily animated dramas. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.